Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was something, whatever it is, and in the sound of silence. Look, we don't need a grand inquest, do we? After that one, we lost. It's disappointing. It's definitely disappointing. It's frustrating. I mean, few of us, not me, of course, never me, were counting up all the points we were going to be getting in these next few fixtures, wasn't it? We were looking impenetrable. We were looking bulletproof. Nothing to lose. Fire away, fire away. It's what I will say is I think my main take away from this game, the main reflection I had watching that, is that we've allowed Bournemouth's game to influence too much what it is that we're doing. I think it is great that Thomas Frank is flexible. Thomas Frank caters for different occasions and everything like that. But you also run the risk of perhaps losing our own identity, losing our own kind of game plan. And Thomas Frank is obviously a very talented manager, and he will learn from a game like today. But it feels like we've gone into that knowing full well that Bournemouth press, Bournemouth are very organised, and he's opted to go with, quite surprisingly, that kind of Polinia Sarr, Bentancur midfield. I would imagine Polinia, primarily has been put in there to stifle Bournemouth, to add an air of press resistance to our midfield, right? And I don't particularly know if João Polinia is a press resistant player or not as a sort of technical characteristic, but what he is a big hard bloke, isn't he? He's a presence. So whether or not we've gone with Polinia there in the midfield to stifle what it is that Bournemouth can do, to add ourselves a bit more armour, a bit more steel in that midfield, if you like, I think ultimately it's been our undoing. In games like Manchester City, where I guess we're probably relying on being somewhat more transitional, as people say, relying on those turnovers, breaking up, knowing that Manchester City are going to launch wave after wave after wave of attack, with lots of very talented technical footballers in there. Having a battering ram like João Polinia, I'm not going to default to calling him a battering ram. That's not fair. But you know what I'm saying. Having a presence like him in that midfield to break up play and then unleash the likes of Sarr and Bentancur was absolutely world class against Manchester City, and they weren't expecting that whatsoever. Against Bournemouth, it worked to a degree, but it also meant that we weren't really progressing the ball very well because of their press. I'm guessing that their press was stifling our avenues to. Kudus looked pretty much cut off for large parts of the first half and second half. Brennan Johnson, I think we all know, is very, very handy, very useful in certain circumstances. Those circumstances generally being if the ball is put in front of him in the box, 9 times out of 10 he's likely to score. If he's required to make things happen outside of the box, it's not, it's not really what he does, is it? I think we saw that today. We saw that lack of kind of impetus, no flow coming from the midfield. Bournemouth just pressed. And look, the thing is as well, right? I've got to say, as much as I can say, put this onto us, our selection was bad. You know what, as well? Bournemouth just did us today. Bournemouth were really good. Bournemouth played really well. Their goal was somewhat fortuitous. It was a big old deflection. At first, I wasn't sure if it was just a horrible flap from Vicario, but it was. It was a crude deflection. And yeah, I mean, look, this is the start of the journey under Thomas Frank, isn't it? It's almost like I think there's a sense of us wanting to jump the queue. By us, I mean like some of the fans, like mentally. I know we've had a 10-year process to get to where we are with the stadium, and we've gone through cycles and all this type of thing. I get it, but unfortunately, we are still a club that when we do slide down a bit, we can slide further than teams like Arsenal, teams like Liverpool, teams like Chelsea when they have a couple of off seasons. Um, I don't quite feel like the foundations are yet in place for Spurs to be able to disappear for a couple of years and then come bouncing back. I think we're at the start of a process under Thomas Frank, but it's very promising already. And as soon as we did make those changes in the second half, to be fair to him, look, as much as we can all sit here and say Frank made a mistake starting with Polina, that midfield isn't the sort of thing you want to do against teams who are in the, outside of the bracket of the very elite teams in the Premier League. He's obviously acknowledged that because he took Polina off, brought Bergval on, and what we did start to see again was a team that was ticking, that was creating opportunities. I think we still only had one shot on target, which was Bergval's one. Um, but we were creating opportunities. We were breaking Bournemouth's press. We were pushing them back, pegging them back into their own half, really, almost into their own box towards the end of the game. And had we another 5-10 minutes, I reckon we probably would have ended up equalising, if not going on to win it. It was a bit of an off day from Richarlison, given his sort of start to the season. But once again, I don't feel necessarily that there was that much cohesiveness in the final third between the players. I think Kudus was somewhat cut off, but he was clearly getting a bit frustrated, I think. And that's not digging him out and that's not singling him out for criticism. But I do think he was getting quite frustrated. And I think a few of his actions were quite rushed. I think he at times sort of snatched at opportunities. I don't think he got lucky. But Bournemouth were definitely trying to wind him up, and I can't remember which one of their players it was that went down holding their face, making out like he'd elbowed them or something. No, that's a few of them were doing that actually. Bournemouth, they kept going down a couple of times because there was that later on that incident where Doggy was getting pulled down, and he, as a result of the Bournemouth player grabbing his arm, his hand came into contact with like his ear. Looked like it drew blood. I think it must have been like a blood vessel or something like that. One of those things that looked worse than it actually was. Um, but I think Bournemouth just had our number today. They had our number, and it just reaffirms really why it was so crucial and it is so exciting that we signed Xavi Simons, because you don't want to put all the pressure on this sort of on his young shoulders. You can't be sort of treating him as some sort of a messiah, if you like. But from what we've seen of his highlight reels, from what we've heard about people who have watched him, studied his time in the Bundesliga and various other leagues he's played in, he's going to be a talent, and he's going to be invaluable in games like this where we have, over the past few years, really, I mean, let's be real, since we lost Ericsson, struggled to break down dogged teams. And I'm not going to sit here and call Bournemouth a low block team, because I don't think they were, playing a low block against us. It didn't appear that way. I think they were very energized, very up for it. It was a good performance from them. Good performance from them. Not particularly great performance from us, but we did start. Like I say, we did start to find our feet towards the end, and it is what it is, isn't it? I mean, got an international. That's the other thing as well. The irritating thing is it's the international break. Again, again, we've lost ahead of an international break. We still haven't broken that curse, but it is what it is, And I know that type of stuff winds people up. I know when you try and kind of just palm off a result in this sort of moment, it will annoy some people, and some people want to be annoyed and get angry and find somebody to blame for it. But really, my knee jerk to that is my not my even my knee jerk, just my feeling towards that game is that Bournemouth simply played better than us. They are further along in their process, if you like. They've been playing with this manager for Semenyo as well. What a player he is, man. He would be a delightful player in this team, honestly, Semenyo. If you had Kudus on one side, Semenyo on the other, I mean, that would be like ridiculous. Wonderful, wonderful player he is. Really, really bossed us for big parts of this game today. I'm just like staggered. Nobody's gone in for him. Really, like nobody big has gone sort of hard for him. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I think he's a sensational footballer. But yeah, like I say, I'm not going to rant and rave about it. It's the third game of the season, third Premier League game of the season. There's plenty to look forward to, and as Frank said himself at the start of the season, it's a long road. We're going to lose games, um, but I've seen enough of a positive impact from Frank already that I'm not going to start getting all wound up about it. He tried something, it didn't work, and he rectified it in the second half. So he was acutely aware that his gamble didn't pay off. I think that's what it said to me. And from games like this, you have to try and draw positives out of it. It's not worth me sitting here for however long, half an hour, just complaining about the game and saying how terrible it was and how Frank was, he's a false prophet and we need to get 10 more players in before the window closes because, I don't really think a lot of that stuff. And also, what's that going to achieve? So what I would rather do from a game like this is look for the positives and see that Frank acknowledged where he probably went wrong, made those changes pretty swiftly into the second half. And from that point on, Spurs did improve. We controlled the game and yeah, we didn't quite get it over the line. I think Richarlison has drawn quite a bit of criticism today. I'm not going to sort of start jumping on that. Like I'd rather sort of cast my mind back to what he's been doing for the rest of the games of this season so far, and just see it as that, you know, we just didn't go into this game in an optimal state, and Bournemouth did. Bournemouth Bournemouth did a number on us, and sometimes that's just the case, isn't it? That's what we did to Manchester City last week. Are we a better team than Manchester City? We're definitely not. Are Bournemouth a better team than us? I doubt it. Remains to be seen, obviously, but I highly doubt it. But sometimes teams can just do a number on one another. It's the Premier League, It's the Premier League. It's the trickiest league, and I know. We should be beating teams like Bournemouth, but we haven't done. We got no right to. Premier League's a difficult league. There aren't really many walkover fixtures other than Manchester City, seemingly, for Tottenham Hotspur. Um, Stephen King says, Jack, why can't we have nice things? We've got lots of nice things, Stephen. Don't worry. Nil desperandum, my friend. Ando says, international break defeat again. Another 2 weeks to stew on that mess. Yeah. That's the kicker, isn't it? Had we next week a nice sort of European fixture, Champions League game to look forward to, I dare say it would soften the blow somewhat, but we don't. And, that isn't our future. Let's not forget that. We've got Champions League this season. We just had the Champions League draw. We've got a very nice draw in the Champions League. And I expect us to do quite well in that competition as well. K9 McGurn 1 says, it's going to be okay. We need a left winger. Yeah, maybe. I thought, I'll do the players, obviously, but I did think Odegaard was very positive when he came on, though, in the second half. I was was actually really quite taken with his performance. Tell also. Beat Plate says, uh, do you think the club enjoys the smell of our own farts too much following our annual win over City? This is now a repeat pattern of playing very poorly and losing directly after that fixture. That's quite interesting. That is quite interesting. Maybe there's something in that. Could be something to mull on. It's not something I have an answer for, but it's definitely something to mull over. Benedict Fox has said, I'll take the upside. I loved seeing Bergvall, Odeberg, and Tell both good too. Okay, so I loved seeing Bergvall and then Odeberg and Tell both good too. We move forwards. Yeah, I think that's a pretty sanguine. Is that what you say? Way of looking at things. And I said Bournemouth were very good. Was surprised Frank had no answers at half time. More of the same wasn't what we needed. Yeah, I mean, he did move pretty swiftly after half time. I think it was even before 60 minutes. It was the late 50s, I think, if I remember off the top of my head. We did move pretty swiftly after half time. So I guess there's probably an air of not wanting to be too reactive to a half. Give the players that you've and the system that you've gone out with one last kind of opportunity to rectify things that I guess had been identified and pointed out in the halftime team talk. You would hope, or maybe not. I don't know, but that would just be my guess on it. Beat Plate says, on a positive note, have you watched Alien Earth yet, Jack? I have. I'll talk about that towards the end. We'll stay on the football for now. For anyone that is one of the whatever percentage it is, that's 30 something percent, isn't it, that stay on to the end of podcasts. I'll go on a bit about Alien Earth then if you want. Darren says, haven't seen the game, but the stats look atrocious. It was a pretty stinking performance, Darren. I can't lie. Like I'm choosing to be quite, like I say, positive about, not positive. Yeah, I guess positive, but I'm choosing to sort of, not let it get to me at this stage of the season. But it was quite an ugly performance. It wasn't very good from Spurs, to be honest. It's a bit all over the place. Alan Leslie says, one of the most frustrating games I've seen in years. Richarlison reverting to type and throwing himself to the ground. Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't a wonderful performance from him today, was it? But he has been brilliant up until this point. So, I kind of feel like the majority of the forward line, our forward line, just ended up getting quite frustrated today, and yeah, it's what happens, isn't it? Day says, despite the lineup not being as progressive as it should have been, considering Bournemouth like to press man to man, I thought we could have gotten the lead early if not for Brennan Johnson. Shouldn't start anymore. This is the thing. This is the thing about Brennan Johnson. The man is a conundrum because he scores. I know he hasn't done today, but you get him in the right position, he scores 9 times out of 10. I can imagine he's a very, very difficult proposition for any manager. So yeah, that's my kind of thought on it. David G says, oh, here we go. Here's another similar to what was said earlier. David G says, I reckon a lot of our players believe their own hype after a brilliant start to the season. You could see Bournemouth were better in every duel all over the pitch. Hopefully Frank will ground them. Yeah, and if that is the case, then I would imagine that he will. I think he's brilliant. I do think Frank is brilliant, and this is the start of everything, right? I mean, of course, it'd be lovely if we could go and do a Leicester this year and win the league in the most unlikely fashion or something like that. But that's what it would be, right? It would be unlikely. What would be nice though is if we can build ourselves into a likely outfit. If we're at the start of a road of building ourselves into a likely outfit. And what I mean by that is a team that at the start of the season people are talking about saying Spurs are solid, Spurs are a dark horse, or even one of the favourites for the title, as we were under Maurizio Pochettino. But that took 2, 3 years, until we got to the point where we were a truly exceptional outfit. And I think if we just have a bit of patience and we just allow this team to grow, because it's such a young core we have again. A lot of the tools, and I know I'm commodifying human beings there, but a lot of the tools at Frank's disposal are brilliant young footballers, like promising, brilliant players. Um, so stick with him, give him a bit of time, give him a bit of space to develop under his tutelage, and sky's the limit. Dave says, imagine Brennan Johnson. Imagine instead of Brennan Johnson, it's Xavi. Instead, we'll probably win that game. Maybe, and that's what we're hoping, isn't it? But I don't know if he'll be starting off the left. I know he's played off the left quite a lot for Leverkusen, and he is quite a versatile player. But I think his favourite position is that more number 10 role, isn't it? So he might well be playing alongside Brennan. I mean, I dare say he will be playing alongside Brennan Johnson at various points. Chris Bell says, mate, what were you watching? This was a disgusting performance. Bournemouth pressed the life out of us and took Kudus' threat away. Without him, we have nothing. Wake up call. I would say, Chris, I don't think I've said anything that is contrary to what you've said there. I think I've pretty much acknowledged every single thing you said there. Um, as part of my sort of chat about the game so far. I did feel that this was you know all right. You said, oh, so I guess maybe you're, because you said we never had control. In a follow up comment a couple of seconds later, you said we never had control of this game at any point. So maybe this is when I was talking about later on. But I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I do think in the last third of the match, I think we were all over them really. We were pressing them, and they had been restricted to having the odd break of trying to sort of get Semenyo through. Clivert had that. Clivert had that lovely little touch as well. He did like a sort of almost like back heel through ball, which was very good. But no, I agree with you, Chris. I do think Bournemouth pressed the life out of us. I said that definitely they shut off the avenues to Kudus. Said that at the top as well. But I do think I disagree with you in the respect that I do think we did start to control the game towards the end. Pretty much as soon as we brought on Bergvall into the midfield, who was being perhaps more positive in his build-up play than, say, Polina was. Hacker BLCPS says, not that I would ever know better than Frank, but he needed to break the Bournemouth lines, kept going over the top or to the sides, limited space in the middle really well. Yeah. JJJ said, that should have been 7-0. The worst performance from a Spurs team in 3 years against a mid-table team. I'm not really buying that, JJJ. And I would say, I'm just guessing, I'm just projecting onto you that you're coming at this from a perspective of being somebody that was a very big Ange Postecoglou fan, because I think if you think that was the worst performance we've had in 3 years, I'm not really buying that, mate. Julian Big says, better to have our pants pulled down early than 10 games in. Yep, Bournemouth were at it and we weren't. Fair play, move on. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way of looking at it. We do have, I think we've got Chelsea 10th game of the season again, don't we? The infamous Chelsea 10th game. So at least we've got it out of the way before then. Cameron Arthur says, whenever you wear the billabong we lose, put it away. Yeah, I am wearing my nice cover. I'll tell you, I'll give you some insight into why I am wearing the billabong today. This is basically now being resigned to. It's one of those t-shirts I wear when I'm like doing stuff. So doing the gardening, doing something around the house. And we've actually been so Charlotte does dog sitting every now and again, right? And so at the moment, she can't actively do much of that sort of thing at the moment. So basically I'm doing the dog walking and all that type of thing, and it's not a big Rottweiler, but it's a Rottweiler, so it's a big dog, playful dog, lovely dog. But I sort of just took it out for a nice big walk in the woods this morning, Saturday morning. Get up nice and early, walk through the woods with the dog, lovely. But yeah, I'm just wearing my little I'm doing stuff because it's like lifting a muddy dog up and out of a. Why am I going on about this on a post Bournemouth game? You don't need to hear all this. I'm just excusing why I'm wearing the cursed Billabong t-shirt. But it's very comfy. It's very nice. I do like it. It's just like I say, it's gone from one that I would wear out and about to just one where I walk Rottweilers in the woods. Snow Sniper Gaming says Frank got it wrong. Bournemouth forced all the ball to be played out via Van der Ven, sorry. Everyone, I can't believe I've done that. I'm really annoyed. I always hear other podcasters do that, and I've done it now. No better than any of the rest of them. Spence and BJ couldn't progress the ball up the field, so Kudus was frozen out of the game. Bergvall and Odegaard played well. Yeah, agree with all that, mate. I thought Odegaard was really nice when he came on. Really good. He had that one opportunity, dropped him really nicely, really, really nicely made opportunity as well. And he fluffed it way over the bar. Hacker BLCPS also reckons that our players are out there tying flags to lampposts. I mean, I was just saying because like Tom Foynes, friend of the show, he was saying to me on WhatsApp during the game that it's obviously such a thing that our players get too distracted ahead of international breaks. And I was saying the only thing to solve that is have them out there, tying flags to lampposts. Show that they're dedicated to this country. To this, not to this club is what I meant to say. Freudian slip there, isn't it? Have them tying Tottenham flags to lampposts down the high road. We'd do that, yeah? So, bin all the other ones. No Sweden, no Holland. None of that. No Argentina. Just Tottenham flags. Tottenham flags up and down all the lampposts on the high road. HS says players getting space jammed before international break. Jane Poland says, as always, Spurs fans have a meltdown. For crying out loud, give us a break. We're going to lose games, and Frank is going to make errors. He is as human as the rest of us. I don't know if that's a general comment to like Spurs fans in general, like on like Twitter and all that sort of thing, or if you're directing that at me, Jane. But I feel like I've been pretty light down the line with this. I think I've been all right, don't you? I mean, obviously not if you felt the need to direct that comment at me, but if it was just a comment at large at the fan base, then fine. C. Alds says Ange had an injury crisis to use as an excuse. What does Thomas Frank have? Hopefully he can learn from today's shambles and we don't need to see that again. I mean, just a fact check. Ange had an injury crisis for part of the season, but not like half of the end of the season. He didn't. So just saying, right. Chris Bell says again, Odegaard, Tell, Johnson, etc. are bang average. Odegaard and Tell, I think jury's out, mate. I reckon they've got a bit of time to go. Those two. I thought Tell's shot that he got onto the end of in the second half was beautiful technique. You have to give him that, man. He's showing a bit of talent to be able to do that. But I don't think they're championship players. I don't really agree with that. Let's let's do the players though this time. Let's just get through this bit because I don't think there's an awful lot more to say today. Like I say, I think the grand inquest is not required at this point in the season. Guillermo Vicario, yeah, he was all right. I was My confirmation bias was tingling, wanting to dive in on him for the goal, but it did look like a pretty like I say a vulgar deflection. So fine, we'll let him off the hook. Jed Spence, not at his very best today. Has the England call up got onto his head? No, I don't think it has. I just think Bournemouth pressed us really well, and he just had a bit of an off game. Mickey van der Ven, I thought was one of our better players today. Got to say, there are a couple of times when he managed to make last ditch tackles or blocks. When Bournemouth were quite successfully breaking through us, as they did at various points throughout the game. So, yeah, that's one thing for Mickey van der Ven. I thought it was a very good performance. Quite unlucky to get the yellow card, I felt, but is what it is. Christian Romero. One thing, actually going back to Vicario, one thing I will say is players are still going for him. I saw it was it Turner? Was he called Turner? Tavernier? Might have been Tavernier, or it could have been Adams. One of Bournemouth's players kept for the whole game they kept having an ongoing back and forward every time Bournemouth got a corner. And Vicario, he tries his best, but he still just doesn't exude that confidence. He gets a bit too rattled by it. He just needs to kind of deal with it in a more authoritative fashion. Stop kind of like flapping his arms about and looking to the referee to help him, and just kind of get on top of it, because it's clearly something that players are being briefed to do to him. And he does get rattled by it still. Romero, fine, solid enough performance. He kept sort of trying to bring the ball out of defense, trying to get try and get us playing football. I thought his endeavour was there, and good performance from him. Pedro Porro, not his best performance again today. Both basically pushed pegged back Spence and Porro today. Porro probably didn't offer Kudus enough support at times as well. I'm not really sure what was kind of going on there, but yeah, I don't know. It wasn't a vintage performance from Porro today, I don't think. Pap Sarr was pretty much pressed out of the game. Love him. He's had a lovely start to the season. Was not particularly great today. Polinia, I think, did what he does pretty well. I think he did break up some of Bournemouth's play. I think he did provide something of a presence in our midfield, but I just don't think the occasion called for him. We struggled to transition, and you'd probably say that was down to him, because as soon as Bergvall came on, we were starting to play with a lot more freedom, a lot more thrust. Rodrigo Bentancur, I did think was all right today, though. I've got to say, despite all that, I think he was probably the best of our midfield today. I think he kept things ticking over, was trying his hardest to make things happen. A decent performance from him today, I felt. Brennan Johnson, largely ineffective. We didn't get him into any good positions to do what he does best, which is, in space, attack that space and generally score goals. But he's never that effective in the build-up, and that's been proved today, especially by a clip that's already kind of doing the rounds of him, kind of an unforced error, basically, in some of our approach play that people are sort of using to vilify him with. And I know people are going to get bored of people like me saying this, but it's not that, I don't think Brennan Johnson is beyond criticism or anything like that. But also, he scored a winning goal for us in a European Cup final. So I kind of, I've got quite a sort of soft stance towards him, really. in that respect. I don't really have the will to sort of want to gun him. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's Brennan, mate. Good lad. Allay, allay. Kudus, not at his best today, but wasn't allowed to be at his best. I do think, like I say, when he did get opportunities, I think his frustration was showing because I do think he rushed a lot of what he was doing, snatched at certain chances. And yeah, his talent's there to see. It's clear to see how brilliant he is. And once the team has kind of gotten through inevitable teething problems that are going to come at the start of any kind of project, if you like, he's going to be fine. He's going to be grand. Wonderful player. Richarlison kept trying, but yeah, it didn't. Nothing really came off for him today. Wasn't the sort of Richarlison we've seen for the start of the season, and that's fine. There's going to be days like that. That's what's going to happen. So we just got to, we got to acknowledge that that's the case, and that is what happens. Mathis Tell, as I've said, I thought he was actually pretty bright when he came on. Had that lovely shot, his technique to get that shot away that just whisked past the post. Their keeper, what's he called? Petrovic, had no idea, was rooted to the spot. So could have been a lovely goal that, but alas, wasn't. Destiny Adogi was bright when he came on. Good performance from him. He is a lovely player, and it's a lovely headache to have with him and Spence being two brilliant kind of. I mean, Spence can play either side, can't he? But still, it seems to be more that we push him towards the left-hand side at the moment. Lucas Bergvall, very, very bright when he came on. It's good to see Frank using him. Obviously, Archie Gray has generally been his go-to, but I think Lucas Bergvall is good in so much as he's something of an in-between, isn't he, between a Polinia and a Gray, because Bergvall still does have a lot of physical presence. He is still a robust player. I think his looks, his image beguiles quite actually how tough he is. He's quite a nasty, hard little player. So yeah, it was good, and I think he was very good when he came on. As was Wilson Odobert, who I thought had a good performance when he came onto the pitch in the second half. Very positive, very bright. Arguably should have done a bit better with the opportunity that he got, but is what it is. As I say, I kind of go back to what I was saying at the top. We have been done today, but Bournemouth, they were good value for it. Yes, it is very frustrating. Of course, I wanted to see Spurs win before the international break. I wanted to see us continue that wonderful start to the season, but we haven't done. What we have got, though, is Xavi Simons in. So that's going to be very interesting to see him hopefully make his debut against West Ham. Maybe we'll get a couple more in before the window closes. We'll see. But it's a work in progress, and many of the signs thus far have been very positive. Today was just not very good at all. Weren't quite at the races. Frank probably got it a bit wrong, but like I say, no grand inquest required. We're 3 games into the Premier League season. It's fine. Look, let's just give it a bit of time. Let's have a bit of patience and see what happens. See where this goes over the next couple of years. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You can, if you are watching this on YouTube, please do drop it a like, put notifications on, all that sort of thing. If you're listening to this, please, and I am going to be beggy, please leave ratings. There's a number of you that listen to it on Spotify on a regular basis who still have not dropped me a rating on Spotify. If you can do that, it helps the podcast to grow. It allows more people to hear it. It gets suggested to more people. Put a lot of work into this. If you enjoy it, if you listen to it regularly, then please, all I ask, just give it 5 stars. give it a star rating. Helps it to grow. Thank you. Same on Apple as well. Although I think my Apple listeners are a bit better. I've got to say, Spotify crew. I think the Apple core are, let's see what I did there, are more on it. So yeah, I've also got Patreon, patreon.com/RTR pod. So come on there for preview pods and other random bits and pieces as and when they occur. I got asked from this point on, I'm not doing football now. So if you want to carry on listening to this, great. I got asked halfway through this if I've watched Alien Earth yet, if I'm enjoying it. I'm a massive Alien. So in terms of like nerdy franchise things, I would probably say Alien is my favorite out of like sci-fi stuff. I've always liked it more than Star Wars, definitely more than like stuff like Star Trek and most of the Marvel things, all that sort of stuff. I like Alien. I like Aliens. Alien 3, I still think is good. I like them all. I like it. I like it. I loved Prometheus. I know that was one of people always dug out, but I loved Prometheus. Covenant, I thought had some really good ideas. Um, I have been enjoying Alien Earth. I am up to date with it. I do have a couple of thoughts. One is quite neckbeardy. The neckbeardy one is that basically the alien universe, everything has been built up around that. The law, if you like, would dictate that the alien can never, the xenomorph can never, ever, ever get back to Earth. It can never, ever get back to Earth because wherever the xenomorph shows up, death comes shortly after. It takes over, it destroys everything in its path, right? And so it's always been seen as like the worst thing. It's like worse than a nuclear war. If the xenomorph gets to Earth, it's terrible. And that's always been the lingering threat behind all of Alien, right? I sort of went into this hoping, like how Andor has done with Star Wars. It shows like it shows like the sort of the different political side to Star Wars in the background. It's not all lightsabers and sort of, TIE fighters and stuff like that. There's a bit of that, but not much. It's more about the sort of the machinations of the world. I was sort of hoping that Alien Earth was going to be about that. I thought it was going to be about like the Wayland Yutani Corporation and all of the things that they were doing, the strings that they were pulling back on Earth, as all of the things were happening in the Aliens films. Because I think this is supposed to be running in tandem with like Aliens, at least around that sort of thing. So I was sort of thinking that's what this was going to be about. But the first episode was a xenomorph comes to Earth, doesn't it, with these other species. And look, it doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy it. All I'm saying is like the sort of the one that's the side of me that's more bought into what Aliens is, looks at that and kind of thinks that's kind of disappointing in a way. But the side of me that enjoys stuff to do with aliens enjoys the sort of, I would say, the lovingly made attention to detail that they've done with like the computer consoles and the noises and the sort of the general score, soundtrack, the ambience of the thing. They've made it very, very like faithfully to the franchises. I just found it a little bit kind of, I don't know. To me, it was like I thought maybe that's going to be like the threat over the whole of it. Maybe the alien will come to Earth in the last. If there's 4 or 5 seasons of this, maybe it will come in the last season as a culmination of all these different things that have happened. But no, they've just dropped it straight on planet Earth. So fine. If that's where they've gone with it, I'm not going to sit there and say as like a principal thing, oh, I'm not watching this now because of that. So I'm still watching it. I am enjoying it. My other sort of take on it is I feel like really it's a show about AI. It's a show about AI. It's a show about synthetic life, the morality around that, the ethics around that. Sort of, it's veering into similar territory as Blade Runner did before, and those they do kind of exist loosely in the same world, I believe, like Alien and Blade Runner, synthetics and all that type of thing. But it feels more like a show like a sci-fi show that they wanted to make more about synthetic life and the various different ways in which synthetic life can manifest, as they've shown already. But then probably realized in order to get the budget for this or to get this made or to get this off the ground, we probably need to attach it to a big IP. And so they've just sort of slapped a xenomorph in it, made it alien, and that's fine. But that's kind of, I don't know, that's just, I might be way off, but that's just kind of the feeling I got from that. But like I say, I have enjoyed it. I think there's a decent level of suspense in there. There's some really good performances in there. They've They draw out some good tension. They're drawing out some decent talking points, some decent kind of ethical thought starters. Um, and I'm just sort of, I like most things to do with like Alien and Aliens. I quite enjoy it. So yeah, happy to watch it. And I'm not gonna like turn off as a result of anything like that. But yeah, so that was the question on Aliens. Sorry to anyone that had stayed here to listen to more Spurs stuff. I did say the Spurs stuff was over. But anyway, appreciate everybody for coming, watching, listening. International break, but there will still be more pods. Another pod coming out on Monday and the Q&A on Thursday. So be sure to send me any questions across. I've got a good guest for this Thursday, but I'm not going to say it yet, just in case they have to pull out last minute. But yeah, go back and listen to all the other pods. Did a good pod yesterday with Kish from Lily White Lab on Xavi Simons and why he is going to be Tottenham's next superstar. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Much love. Come on, you Spurs. Keep the faith.